Thank you. We haven't done anything yet. My name is Richard Partington. Good evening, everybody. And I'd like to welcome you all to Toronto Field Naturalists for all seasons. Now, what about this theater, eh? Isn't it a little beauty? The Paper Mill Theater in Todmorden Mills. I've been up and down this trail, the Don Trail, for years, a million times, and I've never been inside this. It's a little gem. So we're here tonight to celebrate the 90th anniversary of a group that's had almost half as long a history here in this valley as these buildings. My co-host, Jennifer Smith, will tell you what we're up to.
Thank you, Richard. We're not all dry as dust academics in the Toronto Field Naturalists. Far from it. We're a talented, creative bunch who like to have a good time. So we've put together a little show to celebrate that fact. And along the way, we'll give you a little history of the club and pat ourselves on the back for a few of our achievements.
There'll be cake and tea and coffee in the lobby after the show, so don't run away. The show shall take about an hour and a bit, give or take. We've not had a lot of rehearsal, so bear with us if there's a glitch here and there. It's all in the spirit of celebrating our 90th birthday. So welcome to the show. Please turn off all cell phones at this point, upon pain of death. And first, we have a special visit from Toronto City Councillor Mary Fragadakis. There she is. Mary will make a presentation to our club president and producer of this show, Margaret McRae. Take it away.
Thank you, Richard. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here. I bring greetings from Toronto City Council. I'm so happy to be here today and have an opportunity to thank the Toronto Field Naturalists for promoting a love of nature in this city. That love of nature that you have fostered enriches our lives on a day-to-day basis. A city is one big forest, a natural and human ecosystem. Cities, countries, neighborhoods, like a natural system, must be sustainable, and all the elements need to work towards working together in harmony. Nature and cities are full of connections, incongruities, complexities that surprise, dazzle us, and enlighten us. And the truths in nature's beauty need to be drawn out onto the canvas of city life. And the Toronto Field Naturalists have been doing exactly that since 1923. Volunteer organizations like yours are the lifeblood of this city, and those that toil away in them are the unsung heroes of our city. Thanks again for the beauty, joy, mystery, and knowledge you bring into our lives. This past spring at school graduations across the ward, I actually found myself quoting the great Dr. Seuss. So let me end today on the same note. Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's just not. I actually have a scroll to present to Margaret and the Toronto Field Naturalists, and it reads, "Congratulations, Toronto Field Naturalists, on your 90th anniversary celebration. We thank you for your many years of creating awareness concerning our natural heritage. Our community supports your efforts in preserving Toronto's parks, ravines, and waterfront."
Thank you very much, Mary. And now our president, Margaret, will give a brief history of the Toronto Field Naturalists with some images assembled by Ed Freeman, who's up in the booth tonight pressing very important buttons. Thank you, Margaret.
After meeting to form a natural history society called the Toronto Field Naturalist Club in June 1923, the club was launched on October 29th, 1923, with 2 meetings, one in the daytime for teachers and students and one in the evening for the general public. The club began meeting at the theater in the U of T Biological Building, then a brief sojourn at the Humane Society's auditorium, and in October 1936, switched to the Royal Ontario Museum. Members were surveyed about their interests, and a program for the year was drawn up. 2 field trips were held in 1924. The first was in April, organized by Stuart Thompson, the nephew of Ernest Thompson Seton. Each group had an ornithologist, a botanist, and an entomologist. The second field trip was held at Armour Heights on May 31. In the first year, with the city's permission, placards were put on trees, asking people to spare the flowers and not pick them. By the end of the first year, we had 162 members, and 23 were still active members in 1951, when the first history of the club was published in the newsletter, and a few were still members in 1965, when the revised history was published. In 1926, we had 7 special interest groups formed, focused on birds, mammals, flowers, insects, fish, reptiles, and amphibians, geology, and wildlife preservation, each with a chairman and a secretary. By 1926, activities were centered on a series of lectures during the fall and winter and on field trips in the spring. Until 1939, leaders for the special interests took charge of field trips. With the war, leaders were scarcer and field trips became more general in character or emphasized birds or flowers, the most favored subjects. In 1927 to 28, Ernest Thompson Seton was invited by TFN and the Central YMCA to present 2 lectures, Voices of the Night and Wild Animals I Have Known, at the YMCA. From 1929 to 1935, the TFN sponsored a birdhouse building contest for children. The birdhouses were installed in Toronto parks. In 1930, the Toronto Field Naturalists Club was formed. Junior Field Naturalist Club was formed. And in 1934, Murray Spears became its first president. His niece, Rosemary Spears, and grandson, Miles Hearn, are currently TFN members. Also, in 1930, with permission from the Parks Department, TFN opened the first nature trail in Sunnybrook Park and labeled many trees. In 1931, a club member served as a nature guide in the park. The trail was challenging to keep up and didn't last long. In 1931, we were involved in the founding of the Ontario Federation of Nature, now Ontario Nature. And in 1939, they established the Summer Nature School, and our members were prominent leaders in it. It later became the FON Camp. In 1948, we began giving scholarships. In the first 10 years, there were about 100 people on each general hike. In the 1930s, there were 200 to 400 people per hike. And after the war, about 200. During the 1930s, we increased the number of hikes from 4 field trips per year to 37 in 1938. Wednesday morning bird hikes started early in the morning before going to work. In 1944 to 5, there were 75 field trips, but by 1964 to 5, about 45 hikes, which was a more sustainable number. In 1930 to 39, we stressed conservation. We worked to get better protection for eagles, pelicans, herons, and cormorants, and also hawks and owls. In September 1938, the first newsletter was published, and Dr. R.M. Saunders edited it for about 30 years. In 1946, we started the Audubon Film Nights, which continued for 37 consecutive years and usually showed 5 shows per season. They were 16mm color nature films by top-notch nature photographers, usually narrated by the photographer and organized by the National Audubon Society. They were held in the 1,400-seat Eaton Auditorium, and at the peak were shown on 3 consecutive nights, later reduced to 2 nights, and in the 1960s to 1 night. Later they moved to the 500-seat Oisey Auditorium. Kids had to leave the junior field naturalists at age 14, so the intermediate field naturalists was started and began publishing the Ontario Field Biologist in 1946 and reorganized as the Toronto Field Biologist Club, published the Ontario Field Biologist until 1984. In 1965, R.M. Saunders published the history of the TFN. Until the 1970s, outings were only in spring and fall for bird migration and spring flowers. It was thought everyone was at a cottage for the summer. Summer walks started in 1984, and midweek walks and evening rambles are more recent. In the 1970s, we were proactive. We purchased our first nature reserve in 1970 and started a slide collection in the early 1970s. In 1972, we published a list of plants in 4 parks. From 1973 to 2000, we published 11 Toronto ravine studies. In 1976, we published Toronto the Green. The old TFN logo, since 1970, was designed by Eric Naismith. A stylized leaf and bird represent the club's floral and fauna interests. It was replaced in 2008 by our new logo, designed by Elaine Farragher. In 1975, the Sunnybrook Park 100-year-old pioneer log cabin was opened by Lieutenant Governor, the Honorable Pauline McGibbon. Brought from Lindsay by the Rotary Club, it was reconstructed and donated to Metropolitan Toronto. From 1980 until 1994, the Nature Information Center, staffed by TFN members, was open Sunday afternoons from May 1st to Thanksgiving in this cabin and had 2,000 visitors per year. The most frequent question was, where are the washrooms? In 1979, the Nature Arts Club started and held their first outing at York Cemetery. We held cleanups at Todmorden Mills in 1987 and 1989, despite union objections. In January 2000, Elaine Farragher created our first website. I took it over in 2007 and redesigned it, and now Lynn Miller is our webmaster, and she has redesigned it again. In 2005, TFN bought its first computer and started doing the newsletter digitally in September. Jenny Bowl was the editor, having taken over from Helen Juhola. We now have 2 computers and a digital projector. I felt it was important to include this history as it isn't portrayed later in the program. Thank you for your patience, and I hope you will enjoy the rest of the show.
Thank you very much, Margaret. I'd like to add here that Ed Freeman, up in the booth, not only brought these images together, but he has done so for the whole show, spring, summer, fall, and winter. Good for you, Ed. So now, with Joe Bernasky's Spring Haiku, let's get on with the show.
Early spring morning. Sunlight fills the empty sky.
Speak up, please.
Shadows being born.
I heard a red-winged blackbird down my road. Thought I heard a red-winged blackbird down my road. He'll be there beside the river when winter finally breaks its bones. He'll be there among the rushes, he'll be master of his home. Thought I heard a red-winged blackbird down my road. Thought I heard a red-winged blackbird down my road. Safe as Moses in the rushes, makes his home by the river wide. Every time I hear him singing, makes me feel like spring inside. Thought I heard a red-winged blackbird down my road. Thought I heard a red-winged blackbird down my road. He'll be in there singing his heart out, he'll be telling me stories too. Where he went to winter last year, how he's going back there too. Thought I heard a red-winged blackbird down my road. Thought I heard a red-winged blackbird down my road.
So, welcome everyone to today's Toronto Field Naturalist Walk.
I just saw 6 white-tailed deer a few meters back that way. Let's go have a look.
I'm sorry, Professor, deer are not on our list today. Today's walk is for the birds. First, I would like to point out that leaders such as myself are quite knowledgeable. We know every coffee shop, every pub, every ice cream parlor. Now, Mary, could you just, in a few words, tell us a little bit about TFN position?
Of course. If there are any new members here, anyone who isn't already a member of the TFN, we have our literature here. We have 2 to 5 walks a week throughout the entire year. That's between 1 and 200 walks in one entire year.
Okay.
Yes, and no. Okay.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you. I see today that we have the learned professor here. I'm sure that he'll be willing to answer any of your questions. I also see that we have a very famous international photo hunter, Barry, with us today. Welcome, Barry. As a professional photographer, is there any special message you would like to leave with us regarding photography?
Oh, yeah. Don't forget, don't be very cold.
Thank you, Barry. Okay, we're now ready to begin our walk. Whoa! Goose poop! Goose poop alert! Goose poop alert! Do not panic. Do not worry. If we stick together, we will get through this together, and at the end, I have special cleanup. Okay. Just be careful.
Guys, on the left!
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to sing a song. It's by Gordon Lightfoot. Many of you may remember from one of his earliest albums, the song Pussy Willow's Cattails. Pussy willows, cattails, soft winds and roses, rain pools in the woodland, water to my knees, shivering, quivering, the warm breath of spring. Pussy willows, cattails, soft winds and roses. fields and cornfields, daydreams together, riding on the roadside, dust gets in your eyes. Reveling, disheveling, the summer nights can bring. Pussy willows, cattails, soft winds and roses. Slanted rays and colored days, stark blue horizons, naked limbs and wheat bins, hazy afternoons. Voicing, rejoicing, the wine cups do bring. Pussy willows, cattails, soft winds and roses. Harsh nights and candle lights, wood fires a-blazing, soft lips and fingertips resting in my soul. Treasuring, remembering the promise of spring. Pussy willows, cattails, soft winds and roses. Thank you.
Thank you. Spring arrives with the skunk cabbage. It is really here with the trilliums. Each Mother's Day for the last decade, we've done a walk called Aggie's Wildflowers. Agnes Moody Fitzgibbon was born near Peterborough in June of 1833, Susanna Moody's first Canadian-born. She loved to spend her time by the Otonabee, a young naturalist studying plants and animals and learning to draw as a botanist. The family moved to Belleville, and there she met and married a young lawyer named Charles Fitzgibbon, moving to Dundas Street in Toronto in 1850. The Humber replaced the Otonabee, and she frequented it with her children, collecting and drawing wildflowers. Charles died in 1865, leaving her and their 6 children almost destitute. She and her Aunt Catherine Partrail decided to make ends meet with a book, Wildflowers of the Humber, quickly renamed Canadian Wildflowers. They were determined to publish it in Canada, and they were told, no way, you can't do that. You have to go to the States, you have to go to Britain. But in her notes, she said, an old gentleman from Chewits published maps, gave me a lithograph stone and showed me how to draw on it. And the first drawing I did was the trillium. She did each of the illustrations in the book, and there were 10 plus the front piece, and took them home, an edition of 500, and hand-colored them with her daughter, her 13-year-old daughter, Mame, and then they were bound into the book. The book provides a record of what was there in 1866. We revisit their descendants south of Dundas on the Humber each May in a tribute to an early field naturalist and artist. We start and end the walk at a building that was there when she was in the 1860s.
Thank you very much, Madeline, for that interesting history. Well, we've been doing all the work so far, and now it's your turn to join us. We're going to sing, and Richard wrote this for me, everybody's favorite ornithological, hope I did that right, spring song. It is called The Red, Red Robin Comes Bob, Bob, Bobbing Along, written by Harry Wood in the 20s and popularized by Doris Day in the 50s. Sorry, could you hear that? Sorry.
When the red, red robin comes bobbing along, we no more sobbing, he starts throbbing his old sweet song. Wake up, you sleepyhead, get up, get out of bed, cheer up, the sun is set. Laugh and be happy. But if I be blue now that walking through fields of flowers, rain may glisten, but still I listen for hours and hours. I'm just a kid again, doing what I did again, singing a song. When the red, red robin comes bobbing along. Jolly good. I hear some very powerful voices out here in the audience. That's lovely. Okay, it'll be a while before we sing this song for real. We've got a long way to go before then, I think. Anyway, so next we have Joanne Doucette, who, am I right? Who? So sorry, Madeline. Madeline, you have it. Okay, the Black Trillium. Yes, sorry, the Black Trillium. Okay, Madeline will recite or read a poem by a great Toronto poet.
Ray Souster lived on Bobby Point Road, and he wrote a poem about a trillium in the same woods that Aggie did her drawings in, called Black Trillium. No one noticed this one black trillium growing quietly in St. Mark's Wood amongst its white brothers, its shy, even whiter sisters, until suddenly it burst on the world, every shiny black petal gleaming to spread a welcome veil of peace across the battered face of a despairing world in one great burst of song. That's one of Aggie's drawings.
Very nice. Very nice. Thank you, Madeline. Ray Souster was one of my favorite poems when I was growing up. So now we have Joanne Doucette, who will tell us the story of the creation of the great spirit Glooscap.
Back in the beginning, when the world was young, Gilsuk, the creator, thank you. Gilsuk, the creator, threw a mighty bolt of lightning to strike the shore, and it formed the figure of a sandman, and that was Glooscap. But he had no life. So Gilsuk threw a second bolt of lightning, and Glooscap came alive. And his head lay towards the east, the land of the rising sun and of spring. And his left hand was to the south, the land of the noonday sun and of summer. And his feet pointed towards the west, the land of the setting sun and of autumn. And his right hand was to the north, the land of the midnight sun and of winter. His back was to the earth, and his face was to the sky, and Nakuset the sun. And the sun rose every morning across the sky and set in the west, day after day. And spring turned into summer, turned into fall, turned into winter again and spring. And Glooscap asked the Creator, "Please free me, that I may move about like my brother the wolf and my sister the swan, and learn and grow." So Gilsuk sent a mighty bolt of lightning to strike the sand, freeing Glooscap. And Glooscap stood and turned in a circle 7 times. And then he turned to the east, the land of the rising sun and of spring. and he thanked the spring for all its goodness. And he turned to the south, the land of the midday sun and summer, and thanked summer for all its goodness. Turned to the west, the land of the setting sun and autumn, and thanked autumn for all its goodness. Turned to the north and thanked the midnight sun and winter for all its goodness. In particular, it's the time when stories like this are told around the fire. And then Glooskap turned down and looked to Mother Earth and thanked Ositgamu for giving him the sand for his being, and looked up to Grandfather Sun and thanked him for the warmth and light without which there is no life. And then finally he looked into the final direction, the seventh direction. He looked within to his spirit, and he thanked Gisuk for life. And then he went out to explore the world. First explored the east, and then went south, past deserts and jungles, then west over the great plains and the mountains through the tall trees to the western ocean, and then north to the land where all is ice and snow and the great white bear reigns. Then he came back south, probably passing through Ontario, and maybe even Toronto, as many Maritimers are known to do on their way home, down home. And when he got to the Atlantic shore, he sat by the shore, and he wondered out loud, why am I here? What is my purpose? And a great eagle flew down from heaven and landed at his feet. And the eagle was, of course, a messenger from Gisuk. And this is the message he brought. He said, someone is coming soon who will help you find your purpose. And with that, the eagle spread mighty wings and soared up towards the sun. But as the eagle soared, he plucked a feather and dropped it into Glooskap's outstretched hand. And the eagle feather is always a gift. So Glooskap went walking through the woods the very next day, and he saw an old woman sitting on a rock. And she greeted him, saying, Glooskap, how are you? And he smiled and answered, who are you, and how did you come to be? And she said, well, this is the story. Last night, there was a heavy dew over the forest, and it soaked the moss and lichens on the rocks. And when Grandfather Sun rose high in the sky, his rays touched a rock and transformed it into an old woman. And I am that old woman. I am Nugumi, your grandmother. Nugumi was wise in many things, the ways of rocks and valleys and trees, and she taught all she knew to Glooskap, and he listened to his grandmother. The next day, he was walking along the shore, and a very handsome man approached from the distance. He was tall and had flashing gray eyes like the sea. And he greeted Glooskap, saying, Glooskap, how are you? Glooskap said, who are you, and how did you come to be? He said, this is the story. Last night there was a tremendous storm at sea. The wave grew into mountains, and they pounded the shore. And the wind howled over the surface of the sea, blowing the sea foam up along the shore to gather in the sweetgrass above the tide line. And when Grandfather Sun rose high in the sky, his rays touched the sweetgrass and the sea foam and transformed it into a man. I am that man. I am your nephew. And the nephew was a great hunter, wise in the way of tracking and bows and arrows, and of the sea, of canoes and fishing. And he taught Glooskap all that he knew. The next day, Glooskap was sitting by the fire, and a beautiful woman came out of the dark and sat down beside him and put her arm around him and said, Glooskap, my son, are you cold? And he smiled and responded, who are you, and how did you come to be? She said, well, in the night there was a heavy dew over the birch grove near here. And in the morning there was a stiff onshore breeze, and it plucked a dew-laden birch leaf, and it fluttered to the ground. And as it fluttered down, Grandfather Sun sent his rays down to touch it and transformed it into a woman. I am that woman. I am your mother. and his mother was wise in very many things, but particularly the ways of living in community, of peacemaking, of negotiation, of relationships, and of love. And the family of three dwelt among the First Nations of the East Coast, teaching them and guiding them until they were no longer needed. The first to leave was the nephew, who climbed into his canoe and sailed east towards the rising sun. The next to leave was Glooskap himself. He went west to the land beyond the setting sun, where we all go sooner or later. And it is said that if he's ever needed, he will come back to his peoples. It's also said that if you are wise, with an open heart, an open mind, you will see the face of the grandmother in the rocks, and you will see the form of the mother swaying in the wind in the birch grove. Kespia Duxit, so the story is told.
Thank you, Joanne. I really do enjoy creation stories. So we've come to summer in our schedule, and it's time for you all to join us again in song. Think of yourselves around a campfire in the woods, kind of appropriate in this setting. So here we are with Land of the Silver Birch.
Land of the silver birch, home of the beaver, where still the mighty moose wanders at will. Blue lake and rocky shore, I will return once more. Boom diddy boom 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 diddy boom 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 diddy boom boom boom. High on a rocky ledge, I'll build my wigwam close to the water's edge, silent and still. Blue lake and rocky shore, I will return once more. Boom diddy boom 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 diddy boom 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 diddy boom boom boom. I go seek for thee here in the lowlands. I will return to the hills of the north. Blue lake and rocky shore, I will return once more. Boom diddy boom 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 diddy boom 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 diddy boom boom boom.
A haiku for summer. Warm summer sunshine, eyes traveling across pond. Joe Pieweed reflects.
We're in for a real treat right now with very, very creative people. So let me present the Canadian Bird Corporation, Oiseau Canada, presents the Avian Field Naturalists. A group of birds is in a grove of trees near a popular ravine trail in Toronto.
I get a real kick out of watching these bird watchers. Isn't it cute the way they use tools? Those spooky binoculars that help them see. They don't take much time looking at me. Everybody knows a crow. Caw! Caw! But they sure can take a long time to spot a tiny warbler. Caw! Caw!
Ooh, ooh. The weird thing is, humans can't see in the dark. Ooh, ooh. That's why they use all those awful bright lights.
Cheerio, 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 cheerio. Cheerio, cheerio. Lots of worms in their lawns, especially after rain or when the people turn on the hose. Just wish they'd leave our kids alone when they find them on the ground. We can look after them until they're on their own. Cheerio, cheerio.
That's because you build your nest so close to theirs. Best nest up high. Keeps the nestlings out of trouble. And the view is great. I was flying along the lakeshore and I heard a loon. Oh! I don't mind people in canoes, and they do seem to like us, but those fast motorboats, they're horribly noisy, and when they come too close, they swamp our nest. Nice quiet lakes are getting harder to find.
It's great to fly high, Hawk. But flying low gets more insects, especially over water. I love to maneuver at high speed. Human beings don't bother me. It's kind of fun to watch them watching us. And their houses make for such good nest box.
Give me a nice hole or a hollow in a tree. So convenient for everything I need. And the kids are safe. Chickadee-dee-dee. But in spring, I say, Phoebe. I sing. My spring song, song, song. But then I sing all year long, long, long. I have to impress that beautiful female so to be my partner. Birders spend a lot of time looking at me because I am so gorgeous.
One thing I need to warn everybody, watch out for the cars. They can be deadly.
Exactly. Flying over forest and field is exhilarating, but for a reliable source of food, nothing beats a highway, especially in the morning. Lots of roadkill. Yum, 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 yum.
I couldn't agree more, Turkey Vulture. Caw! So, some of you benefit from bird feeders, some from wet lawns and roadkill. I'd say we can agree that while human beings are greedy and have caused a lot of damage to our planet, we can get along with them. The birders seem to be harmless, and they can be fun to watch. Caw! 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 Change hats, at least. We now have a song made iconic by an icon herself, Joni Mitchell's Big Yellow Taxi. And here's a motley crew to sing it for you. Hotel, a boutique, and a swinging hot spot. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone? They paid paradise, put up a parking lot. They took all the trees and put them in a tree museum. And they charge the people $1.50 just to see 'em. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone? Put up a parking lot.
Hey, farmer, farmer, put away that DDT.
birds and the bees. Please, don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone. Paradise, put up a parking lot. Last night I heard the screen door slam,
and a big yellow taxi took away my old man.
Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone? They paid paradise, put up a parking lot. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone? They paid paradise and put up a parking lot. They paid paradise, put up a parking lot. They paid paradise and put up a parking lot. And now, for something completely different. I'm missing a page. I knew this would happen. Here it is. Since its very beginning, 90 years ago, the TFN has wanted to encourage young people to appreciate and participate in the marvels of nature. Hence, the creation of the Junior Club in 1934. In his recent book For the Birds, Fred Heliner remembers going in the early 1940s to Toronto's waterfront with the Junior Club and learning that a male scaup is black at both ends and white in the middle. Fred lives in Brighton now and makes detailed reports about birds in Presqu'île Provincial Park for Aunt Birds on the internet. Member Margaret Cato, at age 12 in the late 1940s, remembers the cacophonous auditorium of the Brahms Little Theatre where 100 or so chattering kids, sorry, I'm having trouble with this music stand. Of the Brahms Little Theatre, where 100 or so chattering kids met for the Saturday morning meetings of the Junior Field Naturalists. Eventually, an adult at the microphone would introduce the day's speaker and topic, whether about geology, flowers, or bird migration. Slides would often augment the presentation, and afterwards they would break into groups, frequently having access to the magic hallways, as Fred Heliner puts it, of the museum itself. Margaret remembers tours with Jim Bailey to see the mounted birds or the drawers of study skins and listen to recordings of bird songs. The great nature poet Robert Bateman, a junior member in the 1940s, praises the club's staff, who, he writes, seemed saturated with quiet enjoyment, enthusiasm, and sharing. His specialty then was a bird carving class, where he learned a lot about bird anatomy and design, an early mastery which has evidently informed his subsequent and magnificent output of wildlife paintings and drawings. I myself can attest to the joys of being a junior field naturalist. In 1959, as a newly immigrated British schoolboy, I remember the Saturday morning meetings in the Wrong Theatre, the cacophony, the speakers, the slideshows and movies, the knowledgeable leaders. Donald Burton was then in charge. And as, I think he may be here tonight, and as chief birder, he took us to Sunnyside one freezing wintry day. He pointed to some bobbing dots in the chilly swells of Lake Ontario and pronounced, mergansers. I'd never heard of them. But to this day, I continue to delight in their low-slung, saw-bill profile, common red-breasted hoodies, as they dive for nourishment in the waters of our lakes and rivers. Don still gives birding walks I know, because I went on one with him a couple of weeks ago in the pouring rain. He hasn't changed much in 50 years. On a late Springfield day trip to a conservation area in 1960, Don taught us the following birdsong recognition trick. Does anybody know this? A rose-breasted grosbeak sounds like a drunken robin. A scarlet tanager sounds like a robin with a sore throat. It has stayed with me ever since. I have a sore throat today, unfortunately. But where, please, are the scarlet tanagers these days? A rare sighting on that trip, which caused much general excitement, was a couple of turkey vultures gracefully wobbling in a thermal above the escarpment. Someone, it may have been Jim Bailey, he was an occasional instructor with us, opined that these vultures would probably in future be a more common sight in southern Ontario. And boy, was he right. That fall, the fall of 1960, I hopped from the bird group over to the mammals, and I remember going the next spring for an overnight trip to the escarpment, Rattlesnake Point, I learned recently. Don Burton informs me that it was Robert Bateman himself who headed the mammal group in those days. Indeed, the copies of Flight magazine, the yearly publication of the Toronto Junior Field Naturalists, which Don very kindly lent me, confirm that Bateman was an instructor with the club for more than just a few years. Alas, I only vaguely remember him, quiet, studious, enthusiastic, good at drawing. That I do remember. And I remember it wasn't the deer mice we caught on that overnight trip that interested me so much as the little red-sided salamanders we discovered when we pulled apart the rotting logs along which we had set our mousetraps. The grand prize was taken at first by a large, dark, blue-spotted salamander, but this was ultimately trumped by a lovely, jewel-like red eft. Mammals they weren't, but we were learning, after all, to be field naturalists, not narrow little specialists. Early in the morning, I had awoken to some ineffable flutings coming from deep in the woods. I learned it was the song of the hermit thrush. To this day, bar none, my favorite bird song. In his 2008 communication to the TFN on the occasion of its 85th anniversary, Robert Bateman wrote passionately and persuasively about the importance of nature, not only for young people, but society in general. I quote from him to finish. A crisis is facing humanity in the industrialized world. Young people are not spending time out in nature. They are instead glued to electronic screens. Recent research has shown that kids who spend significant time each week out in nature have less obesity, less attention deficit disorder, less drug and alcohol abuse, and less depression and suicide. If this trend away from nature continues, we are headed for an Orwellian world. He goes on, one could say that the Junior Field Naturalists had a life-changing effect on me and who I am today. It helped to form my heart and mind and soul. Society could use 1 million more Junior Field Naturalists. And I say amen to that, Mr. Bateman. By way of postscript, let me say that my family moved from Toronto to Kingston in the summer of 1961, so no more TJFN for me. But throughout my life, I have paid attention to, nay, reveled in the world of nature. And then, one cloudy, spotty day on the Leslie Street Spit, May 2010, 50 years after I'd been a Junior Field Naturalist, I came across Bob Courtright giving a warbler walk. And bam! I became a senior field naturalist. And boy, am I glad I did that. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard, for your passionate and personal history of the Junior Field Naturalists. While we no longer have this group, the Junior Field Naturalists, with us due to the difficulty of finding leaders in the 1980s, we still consider it very important to introduce youth to nature. We have been leading walks for youth groups, mainly through the schools, for a number of years. These are organized by the Outreach Committee with help from the Outing Committee, which finds the leaders. Following receipt of a generous bequest some years ago, we began giving annual grants of $60,000 to $70,000 to charitable organizations which offer programs involving youth in nature. Some of the recipients have been the High Park Nature Center, the Ontario Forestry Association, Ontario Nature, Rouge Valley Foundation, Toronto Botanical Garden, Toronto Wildlife Center, Toronto Zoo, and the Toronto Region Conservation Authority. Unfortunately, this money is decreasing each year, so our donations are likewise reduced until we receive more bequests. We would be happy to do more if we had the leaders willing to assume responsibility for youth programs. We welcome your suggestions for future activities. Thank you.
And now, with a tune by the great Malvina Reynolds and words by the great Elizabeth Block, here's Elizabeth Block herself to sing God Bless the Birds.
I don't know about the microphones. This is in praise of the so-called trash birds. I started writing it when I saw house sparrows apparently living in the National Trade Center. God bless the sparrows that nest in the roof, that wild creatures share our city, they are proof. In this desert of concrete, to life they have clung, and against all the odds, they're raising their young, and God bless the birds. God bless the geese that dwell by the shore. Each winter we feed them, each spring there are more. In the parks they increase to numbers burdensome, thus proving the truth. If you build it, they will come, and God bless the birds. God bless the gulls that forage through trash, though some people wish they could settle their hash. Like demons they squawk, they poop from the air, for which they've been banished from Nathan Phillips Square, and God bless the birds. God bless the pigeons that nobody loves, though they don't seem so bad when we call them rock doves. They flourish like weeds, attracting much blame, but how can we criticize when we do the same? And God bless the birds.
Stephen, what are you looking at?
Yellow-bummed wobbler.
Yellow-bummed wobbler.
Where? Where?
Okay, we're about to enter Mosquitoville. I want everyone to remain calm. Do not panic. We will get through this together. In fact, I have special protection for everyone.
I use body shop.
Whatever. Okay, we are now all fully protected and we'll continue on our walk. Here they come!
Five on the left!
Pauline Johnson was the daughter of a chief, head chief of the Six Nations Indians, and was born near Brantford, Ontario. Her mother was Emily Howells, an Englishwoman. Pauline was born in 1862, and in her childhood developed a great love for poetry. She won notice as a reciter, and her charming personality and unique stage presence in native costume made certain her success in the reading of her own poems in Canada, England, and the United States. She became widely known and justly popular. I'm sure the original members of the Toronto Field Naturalists would have known Pauline Johnson's poetry. In Shadow River, she is in a canoe in Muskoka. A stream of silver gladness, of filmy sun and opal-tinted skies, of warm midsummer air that lightly lies in mystic rings, where softly swings the music of 1,000 wings that almost tones to sadness. Midway twixt earth and heaven, a bubble in the pearly air, I seem to float upon the sapphire floor, a dream of clouds of snow, above, below, drifts with my drifting, dim and slow as twilight drifts to even. The little fern leaf bending upon the brink, its green reflection greets, and kisses soft the shadow that it meets, with touch so fine, the borderline the keenest vision can't define. So perfect is the blending. The far fir trees that cover the brownish hills with needles green and gold, the arching elms o'erhead, vine-grown and old, repictured are beneath me far, where not a ripple moves to mar shades underneath or over. Mine is the undertone. The beauty, strength, and power of the land will never stir or bend at my command. But all the shade is marred or made if I but dip my paddle blade, and it is mine alone. O pathless world of seeming, O pathless life of mine, whose deep ideal is more my own than ever was the real. For others fame and love's red flame and yellow gold, I only claim the shadows and the dreaming.
Thank you, Phoebe. That's a marvelous poem from a marvelous talent and very beautifully read. Thank you. So now, ladies and gentlemen, it's your turn again. And you're going to help us into autumn with a Canadian classic by Ian Tyson, Four Strong Winds.
Four strong winds that blow lonely, and seven seas that run high, all those things that don't change, come what may. But our good times are all gone, and I'm bound for moving on. I look for you if I'm ever back this way. Think I'll go out to Alberta, weather's good there in the fall. I've got friends that I can go a-working for. Still, I wish you'd change your mind if I asked you one more time. But we've been through that 100 times or more. If I get there before the snow flies, and if things are looking good, you could meet me if I send you down the fair. But by then it would be winter, not too much for you to do, and those winds sure can blow way those things that don't change, come what may. Our good times are all gone, and I'm bound for moving on. I'll look for you if I'm ever back this way.
A haiku for autumn. Mornings are quiet, green turning yellow and brown, goldenrod swaying.
And now, Joanne Doucette will tell us another creation story.
Back in the beginning, when the world was very young, Glooskap stood high on his home on a bluff above the waters. And he looked out over the fall colors, and they were all brown and gray and drab and dull. And he gathered his paintbrushes in his right hand and his pots of paints on a birch bark tray in his left hand, and he began to paint the autumn leaves carefully, slowly, one by one. But then along came Abligamooch. Now Abligamooch the rabbit was Glooskap's forest guide and his friend. For in the early days, there were no trails through the forest, and animals and people got lost every day. And Abligamooch would lead them out of the forest. But as time passed, the trails grew wide, and so did Abligamooch. And he grew bored. And as beings that are bored do, he grew mischievous and got into trouble time and again. And this day, when he spied Glooskap, he shouted, "What you doing, what you doing, what you doing, what you doing?" And with, "Are you painting a picture for me, 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 me?" And with each me, he jumped higher and higher, and his great hind feet shot out and knocked Glooskap's elbow, and the tray tipped over, and the paint spattered all over the world. And Glooskap stood there, and then he smiled, for the colors were beautiful. But then he remembered Abligamooch's terrible manners, and he shouted in his mighty voice, "Abligamooch!" And Abligamooch the rabbit did what all rabbits do when they're scared. He took off running until he found a safe place where he thought he couldn't be seen, and he tucked himself still and quiet behind a log with just the tips of his ears showing. Now you have to understand, back in those days, rabbits didn't look like rabbits do now. In fact, he had short, tiny ears, sort of like a chipmunk, and he was inordinately proud of those ears. He spent hours grooming them. And when Glooskap saw the tips of those ears, he went, and he pulled. And Abligamooch put his feet down and resisted. And the ears stretched and stretched. And that is why, to this day, rabbits have long ears, and we have the beautiful autumn colors. Caspia Duxit, so the story is told.
Thank you. Thank you, Joanne. Another absolutely charming story. Caspia Duxit. I remember there was a program on CBC when I was growing up in the early 60s that told all the Glooskap stories. I was mesmerized by them then, as I am now. I see, here come those TFN hikers again. Better watch out. Here they come.
Look at the wings on that. The red band, the tail. Unbelievable.
What are you looking at?
Air Canada. Beautiful, beautiful.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. We're about to enter the land of the fire ants. Now everyone remain calm. Do not panic. Follow me and we will get through this together. I have fire protection. Just follow me.
Bye, Gandalf!
We're now going to have a fascinating history from Madeline McDowell as she tells us about one of the greatest disasters ever to hit Toronto, Hurricane Hazel.
The Humber is the largest watershed in the GTA, larger than the Rouge, Don, and Duffins Creek combined. Rising in the Oak Ridges moraine, a Niagara escarpment, it drops more than 6 times Niagara to Bloor Street, or more than the St. Lawrence in its full length. This drop means rapids its full length and made it unnavigable for the First Nations canoes. They had a portage, the Toronto carrying place, that followed the high grounds. It was a trade route in use for 4,000 years, older than the Appian Way, and it was adopted by the Europeans when they came. This drop provided water power for mills and industrialization. There are 27 mill sites alone between Bloor Street and where Highway 401 crosses the river up in Weston. The early settlement of skilled trades here is what caused this area to emerge as the industrial heartland of Canada. In 1984, the Humber was put forward for nomination as a Canadian Heritage River. Ottawa laughed. In 1984, we celebrated, or commemorated more correctly, the 30th anniversary of Hurricane Hazel by having bonfires the full length of the river after dark, and a plane flew down and photographed it. In 1994, between Dundas Street and Bloor Street, we tied bright blue raffia on trees and bushes and other marks to show people where the high water mark was in Hurricane Hazel. Hazel struck Toronto and the GTA October 15th, 1954, dumping 14.5 million gallons per square mile into the bowl of the Golden Horseshoe. 40 billion gallons ran off. Rivers overflowed and formed lakes in the ravines. The 100-mile-per-hour winds caused 30-foot waves. The flood crest was 21 feet. Debris swept against bridges, forming dams which broke. Houses, streets were swept away. 5 firemen trying to rescue some youths were swept to their deaths. 36 people were swept away from one block on Raymore Crescent. Such was the power of water. The Humber Current carried bodies as far as Rochester. Toronto was growing in 1954. This disaster was a wake-up, stopping development in the floodplains and creating the TRCA and expropriating land. Hazel's legacy was a common will on the part of the people to establish a green belt of beauty made up of the ravines, which is now Toronto's cherished setting, and an unmarked sacred memorial to the lives lost and changed forever. 2004, a plaque was unveiled commemorating the 50th anniversary of Hurricane Hazel. Hazel preserved the Humber's integrity. Now a Canadian Heritage River, it is a truly beautiful and natural valley, redolent of history, as described by Kathleen Lazars in her 1911 book, The Valley of the Humber.
A.M. Stephen was born near Hanover, Ontario in 1882, but spent most of his adult life in Vancouver. His poems were published in the 1920s, and I'm sure that the early members of the TFN would have known this one, which is called September Winds. O mad wind, glad wind, that sways the purple plumes of nodding asters row on row, in late September's afterglow, my heart has heard you call. O mad wind, glad wind, my feet would roam with you the wildered paths of tangled fern, where bright the scarlet berries burn and falling leaves are brown. O mad wind, glad wind, come bugle up the sun that leaves a radiance rare and pale in goldenrod along the trail upon the misted hills. O mad wind, glad wind, this fire is of your kin that flames in crimson splendor where fleet autumn glides with unbound hair along your woodland ways. O mad wind, glad wind, she is your breath in form. The music of her light steps beat triumphal marches low and sweet of life fulfilled by love.
Thank you, that was lovely. We are now entering winter, just figuratively, I hope. And we will enjoy another song sung by Elizabeth Block, and she will tell us the title and the composer.
This is by Howard Kaplan, who I doubt very much is in the house tonight. I call it Howard's Solstice Song. He calls it Long is the Winter Till the Sun's Return. Who can tell me one? I'll tell you one. One is the warmth-giving, life-giving sun. Long may it shine, long may it burn. Long is the winter till the sun's return. Who can tell me two? I'll tell you two. Two are the tides chasing after the moon. One is the warmth-giving, life-giving sun. Long may it shine, long may it burn. Long is the winter till the sun's return. Who can tell me three? I'll tell you three. Three are the leaves on the clover stem. Two are the tides chasing after the moon. One is the warmth-giving, life-giving sun. Long may it shine, long may it burn. Long is the winter till the sun's return. Who can tell me four? I'll tell you four. Four are the feet of the scurrying squirrel. Who can tell me five? I'll tell you five. Five are the petals of the blossom of the pear. Who can tell me six? I'll tell you six. Six are the sides of the honeycomb cell. Five are the petals of the blossom of the pear. Four are the feet of the scurrying squirrel. Three are the leaves on the clover stem. Two are the tides chasing after the moon. One is the warmth-giving, life-giving sun. Long may it shine, long may it burn. Long is the winter till the sun's return. Who can tell me seven? I'll tell you seven. Seven are the lobes of the white oak leaf. Who can tell me eight? I'll tell you eight. Eight are the legs of the web-spinning spider. Who can tell me nine? I'll tell you nine. Nine are the leaflets from the hickory bud. Eight are the legs of the web-spinning spider. Seven are the lobes of the white oak leaf. Six are the sides of the honeycomb cell. Five are the petals of the blossom of the pear. Four are the feet of the scurrying squirrel. Three are the leaves on the clover stem. Two are the tides chasing after the moon. One is the warmth-giving, life-giving sun. Long may it shine, long may it burn. Long is the winter till the sun's return. Who can tell me 10? I'll tell you 10. 10 are the segments of the dragonfly's tail. Who can tell 11? I'll tell 11, 11 pairs of teeth in the groundhog's smile. Who can tell me 12? I'll tell you 12. 12 are the feathers of the tail of the owl. 11 pairs of teeth in the groundhog's smile. 10 are the segments of the dragonfly's tail. 9 are the leaflets from the hickory bud. 8 are the legs of the web-spinning spider. 7 are the lobes of the white oak leaf. 6 are the sides of the honeycomb cell. 5 are the petals of the blossom of the pear. 4 are the feet of the scurrying squirrel. 3 are the leaves on the clover stem. 2 are the tides chasing after the moon. 1 is the warmth-giving, life-giving sun. Long may it shine, long may it burn. Long is the winter till the sun's return. Long may it shine, long may it burn. Long is the winter till the sun's return.
Another poem by Ray Souster, Dialogue at Treetop Level. Stud crow in a tree 2 backyards away throws out his gleaming black chest as he bellows in his friendliest voice, "How's my beauty today?" Bashful maiden crow in a tree right above my head surprises herself most of all as she answers in a muffled, choked up clearing of the throat. "Come and get me, big boy."
Two Raymond Souster poems in one program. I don't believe it. It's lovely. Thank you, Madeline. Sounds like things that could get a little bit cozy. So, hey, why don't you and I get cozy with a great hit made famous by such singers as Frank Sinatra and Dino Martin, Sammy Kahn and Julie Stein's "Let It Snow." Oh, the weather outside is frightful, but the fire is so delightful. And since we've no place to go, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. It doesn't show signs of stopping. I bought some corn for popping. The lights are turned way down low. Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. How I hate going out in the storm, but if you really hold me tight, all the way home I'll be warm. The fire is slowly dying, and my dear, we're still goodbying. But as long as you love me so, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. That's good, that's good. It's coming, it's coming. There's a place northeast of here where it is actually easier to get around if you let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. In the summer, it's a swamp. Here's Charles Bruce Thompson to tell us about it and other places.
I think I managed without that. Good catch. Not bad, huh? This is working. Okay, see if I can raise this. Okay. This is a fact-filled few minutes, so pay attention. Okay. TFN Nature's Reserves. It was in 1970 that the TFN acquired 60 acres of land near Uxbridge for its first nature reserve. On March the 31st, 1970, TFN President Jack Gindridge had a message to phone Fred Bodsworth, who had been contacted by the writer, Ian Adams, who was trying to sell part of his property north of Uxbridge. Have you got all that? Good. The Bosworths drove Jack to the property where they met Ian Adams and Farley Mowat to inspect the area in deep snow. Fred signed an option agreement for 60 days at a price of $18,000. After inspection by more board members, the purchase was completed. TFN wanted to create a nature reserve to ensure that the land and its indigenous fauna and flora could be preserved. Wetlands have immense value for flood control and water quality maintenance. Also, TFN reserves provide nesting sites for seed-eating and insect-eating birds, and for hawks and owls, which help control rodents and neighboring farmlands. Furthermore, reserves permit those interested to study a natural environment for both scientific and aesthetic reasons. Since acquisition, TFN volunteers are given countless hours to complete a variety of jobs, including constructing and erecting no trespassing or hunting signs, surveying and mapping the land, creating and maintaining walking trails and boardwalks, building fences and gates, removing invasive plants, constructing outdoor toilets. Trust me, I was there. Identifying and classifying plants for TFN guidebooks, planting trees, organizing work parties, and the list goes on. This first reserve was named after a former president of the TFN, Jim Bailey, a well-known ornithologist and past president of the TFN. Moving on to 1973, when the TFN acquired an additional 30 acres of land in a strip adjacent to the western boundary of the Jim Bailey Reserve. In 1997, the Bailey family donated a substantial amount of money towards the creation of a picnic shelter. This shelter has made lunchtime at the reserve much more pleasant. The family's ashes are buried on the reserve. In 1987, TFN purchased 77 acres of land on the east side of Uxbridge Creek, southeast of the Jim Bailey Reserve. It was named in honor of Emily Hamilton, a TFN director and an active volunteer who led botany outings and compiled many plant lists for the TFN. Emily died in 1992. About 2/3 of this reserve consists of a wet meadow intersected by a small tributary of the Uxbridge Creek. South of the wet meadow is a low ridge with white pine, balsam fir, and white cedar. Beyond this is an alder swamp. The wetland section was designated environmentally significant by the Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority. This property is mostly self-managing because it is largely impassable wetland. The Charles Fell Nature Reserve consists of 200 acres purchased by the TFN in December 1997 for $64,000. It was named after Charles Fell, whose charitable foundation had donated more than enough money to the TFN to cover the cost. This reserve is about 15 kilometers east of the Bailey and Hamilton reserves. It is located in a wide, deep valley. 3/4 is open wetland and 1/4 is wetland with poplar, cedar, and tamarack. Like the Emily Hamilton Nature Reserve, this property is mostly self-managed because it too is largely impassable wetland. But it is accessible in winter when it is frozen. And we have had several trips up there. During 2002 and 2003, TFN acquired 75 acres of environmentally significant wetlands just south of the Emily Hamilton Nature Reserve near Leaksdale. In May 2006, this area was named the Helen and Arnie Jahola Nature Reserve in honor of these two people who joined the TFN in 1972. Helen led numerous outings and edited many of TFN's publications. Arnie served from 1982 to 2005 as TFN's Secretary-Treasurer. The primary purpose of establishing TFN's reserves is environmental preservation. The extensive wetlands of the nature reserves provide excellent habitat for a variety of wildlife, mammals, birds, amphibians, reptiles, fish, and invertebrates. TFN monitors any issues which could affect the reserves negatively: threats from vandalism, snowmobiles, fire, hunting, illegal tree cutting, and removal of plants, which are always concerns. A reserve fund must be kept for property taxes and for maintenance. I think the most rewarding way to appreciate TFN's nature reserve is by joining a work party. And volunteers are always welcome to lend a hand on our reserve days. Just give me a call. Thank you.
Okay, we're nearing the end of our nature walk. And what we've done is, I'd like to ask Barry, our professional photographer, to take a group photo of you all. And perhaps we'll be on the front page of the newsletter. If you could just kind of position us where we best. Now what?
Oops, I forgot my memory card.
Okay, well, in that case, I'll ask a couple of people about their observations over the past while. Professor.
Well, here's what I've seen. You ready?
Okay.
86 rock doves, 33 ring-billed gulls, 6 mute swans, 312 house sparrows, and 92 starlings.
Thank you, Professor.
And a chicken.
Thank you very much. Nancy, how about you? How are your observations?
Let's see here. 12 downies drumming, 11 pipers piping, 10 frogs a leaping, 9 ladybugs a dancing, 8 cows a milking, 7 swans a swimming, 6 geese a laying, 5 golden eyes, 4 calling birds, 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in a pear tree.
Nancy, I think we'll end the walk on that note.
It's a TFN tradition. Coffee shop.
What a bunch of clowns. We're coming towards the end. I would like to sing for you a very famous song, ultra-Canadian. It was made famous by Anne Murray in the early 1970s. I'm sure we all remember it. Snowbird. It was written by Jean McClellan. Beneath its snowy mantle, cold and clean, the unborn grass lies waiting for its coat to turn green. The snowbird sings the song he always sings, and speaks to me of flowers that will bloom again in spring. When I was young, my heart was young then too, and anything that it would tell me was the thing that I would do. But now I feel such emptiness within, for the thing that I want most in life's the thing that I can't win. Spread your tiny wings and fly away. and take the snow back with you where it came from on that day. The one I love forever is untrue, and if I could, you know that I would fly away with you. The breeze along the river seems to say, she'll only break my heart again should I decide to stay. So little snowbird, take me with you when you go to that land of gentle breezes where the peaceful waters flow. So spread your tiny wings and fly away, and take the snow back with you where it came from on that day. The one I love forever is untrue, and if I could, you know that I would fly away with you. And if I could, you know that I would fly away with you.
Haiku for winter. Windless night of snow, white blanket covering me. See you all next spring.
Now, for our final sing-along and our finale, our grand finale, we have a piece made immortal in 1967 by the fabulous Louis Armstrong. What a Wonderful World.
We invite all our cast performers to come up on the stage with us for this sing-along, and of course, you to sing as well.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark secret night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for coming to our celebration. We'd like to thank our musicians, Elizabeth Block and Christine Miller. Our stripper technician, Raffaele Colosimo. Joanne Doucette for her wonderful bird masks, as well as her Glooskap stories. And I'd like to thank Ed Freeman for his really great work on the background imagery and all those words. Thank you, Ed. First and foremost, our producer, Margaret McCrae, without whom this would never have happened. Thank you, Margaret. And of course, a huge thank you for all the fabulous performers up here on the stage. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there will be cake and tea and coffee in the art gallery, darlings. And that's the end of the program. Good night. Thank you.
I would just like to express our thanks to Richard, our director. He's done a wonderful job. I'm just amazed at how much better they were tonight than they were on the Wednesday.
It's like night and day.